In this Fextralife video, we're going to be taking another look at Phantom Blade Zero. Phantom Blade Zero is a game we've covered quite a bit on this channel over the last year or so, and it's a game I got to play again at Gamescom this year, a newer version of the game. And I think it's a game that people in our community are absolutely going to love. It is so much fun to play, and the gameplay that you're going to be seeing today is different than what I've shown previously because this is a different area of the game. And it has different enemies and different bosses, so you're going to see a bit of that in today's gameplay. Now, Phantom Blade Zero is sort of a kung fu action RPG that takes a lot of inspiration from kung fu and Chinese martial arts, which you'll see obviously in the gameplay. If you've never heard of this game before, you're in for a treat in this video, but it is very much inspired by these things. And when you look at the gameplay, it's absolutely a blast to watch. And what I find really interesting about this game is that even though the moves that you're seeing demonstrated by your character on the screen look insanely complicated, it isn't complicated to perform them in the game, meaning no matter what your skill level is, whether you're just starting this game or whether you're a veteran of the game, your gameplay is going to look badass no matter your skill level. And Phantom Blade Zero is probably the best game at Gamescom. If I had never played before, it's probably the game that I would give Best in Show. It's the game we gave Best in Show last year. That's how good this game is. But I could definitely see people who have never played this giving it Best in Show. And in fact, I had several people at Gamescom this year ask me, you know, I have time to go see one game. What game would it be? This is the game that I recommended to them. There is another game that I think is the best that I saw this year, but this is the best one that was playable, which is why I recommended it. So the gameplay that you're seeing today is all on the hardest difficulty of the game. If you remember last September, S-Game added a harder difficulty mode to the game, and this difficulty is no joke, by the way. I went from beating the final boss of last year's Tokyo Game Show demo in like 4 or 5 tries to then it taking me like an hour to beat it on the harder difficulty. Like, it is absolutely insane. It's more akin to a fighting game at that point. Like, the enemy learns to read your attacks, and I almost had to like bait it into thinking I was doing something else. So this is very, very difficult, and all the gameplay you're seeing today is on that difficulty of the game. So in the gameplay, we got to check out a couple of the new weapons in this playtest, including the Soft Snake Sword, which is kind of like a combination between a sword and a whip, and the White Serpent and Crimson Viper dual weapons, which are kind of like dual-looking blades that are kind of snake-like looking or serpent-looking in nature. You know, we could cycle through all the weapons at will, so you'll see in the gameplay that I'm using all different weapons through there. I don't know if there's going to be more weapons added at the full version of the game. I think there are currently 8 total weapons as of right now. I wouldn't be surprised if they added a couple more, but I would be shocked if it was more than that. I think they have a good variety of weapons at the moment, so it's not something I'm like expecting them to do, but they keep adding stuff to this game, and since this game is coming out next year, they still have time to add more and more content. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if we saw a few more weapons added between now and then. Personally, I love the Seamless Death weapon. This is kind of like the dual chakram looking weapons, the dual circular blades. And the reason that I love these weapons so much is not because of their attack pattern, although their attack pattern is just frankly awesome to look at. It's because it changes your dodge into a shadow step when you're using them, and I absolutely love that shadow step. It is so much fun to use, and you can just literally mix it into the middle of your combos. Shadow step through an attack, come out of it, attack again, shadow step through an attack. And it just feels so damn good when you're using it. It made it really difficult to go and use other weapons. But that's just kind of the nature of this game. And one of the things about this game too is that you're rewarded for using multiple weapon sets. Like, you can slot 2 of them at the same time, so you can't have more than that slotted. But if you swap weapons mid-combo in this game, it extends your combo into a longer combo. So you're definitely encouraged to do that. You'll see me do that a lot throughout my gameplay. So even though I love this weapon, I kind of have to mix in another weapon sometimes to keep my combos going. And that is a big part of learning to play Phantom Blade Zero. And in this version of the game, this demo that I got to play, I definitely got a better feel for the level design of Phantom Blade Zero. And it's quite linear from what I've seen. It's not that there aren't like hidden items or collectibles, but it is somewhat linear in nature in terms of like how you get from one part of the map to the next. I don't know if the game is going to be level-based or open world. I don't think it's going to be open world from what I've seen so far. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. I think you're going to go from one level to the next level. At least that's the way it feels so far. Or maybe the map is connected in some way through linear corridors. But it's definitely not going to be open world the way you would expect an open world game to be. So I definitely don't think that's how it's going to play. But there is some, you know, like interesting parts of exploration in terms of like wall running and like rope swinging. And they've added some dynamic movements that feel good when you're exploring. You can also get like stealth kills and things like that. And there was one part of the map where I got like a double stealth kill, which just felt frankly awesome. Like it was one of those moments where I was like, I didn't even know I could do that, and it was really cool. So there are some moments in exploration that are going to stand out, but it's definitely the weakest part of the game. And when I say weakest too, that doesn't mean it's bad. I'm not saying the exploration is bad. It's just that when you have a combat in a game that's next level good, putting exploration next to it it's difficult to even compare to it. Phantom Blade Zero has arguably some of the best combat I've played in an action/action RPG game. You know, we just played Kazan like earlier this year, and Kazan has incredibly good combat. Neo 2 has really good combat, but I think Phantom Blade Zero might even be better than those games. I know that's a bold statement to make, and it's so early, but it is just so much fun to play. And something else about exploration, kind of piggybacking off this a little bit, because the weapons of the game seem to be rewards from defeating bosses or you're acquiring them some other way, I don't think they're just exploration loot. There might be a couple that are, but I don't think in general they are. There are items that you can get that will increase your health, and I think maybe your stamina as well, from what I remember. Don't quote me on that. But it kind of reminded me of like Darksiders or God of War in the sense that like you get a fragment of like health, and then when you collected enough of them, your health would increase. And I think maybe the same is true for stamina. So you get stronger in that way. And actually, as I was exploring, I was like in a hurry because you can imagine I had limited time and there were lots of games to play at Gamescom. So I wasn't trying to like explore all the maps thoroughly and find every one of these. So when I get to the final boss of this area, I'm actually quite weak compared to what you would be normally because you'll have those improvements. And this does add some character progression to the game. It's like, with Phantom Blade Zero, I hesitate to qualify it as an action role-playing title because it feels more akin to an action game because the character progression is much more limited than you would find in an action role-playing game. Like, there doesn't seem to be levels or stats or anything like that. The weapon variety seems to be somewhat limited. You don't have armor or anything like that. So I think it's more akin to something like Ninja Gaiden in terms of like the general progression of your character, and obviously there is some, but it's not like a true RPG in that sense. And one of the things that I find quite unique about Phantom Blade Zero compared to maybe other action role-playing Souls-like games is that when you're playing like a Souls-like game, and when you first start playing Phantom Blade, you will play like a Souls, it's like a Souls-like. You'll just play that way if you're coming from a Souls background like I have, is that you fight multiple enemies a lot in this game. And when you first run into that, it's very overwhelming. And your natural instinct is, let's thin out these enemies and try and face on the more challenging enemy of the group one-on-one, like you would in a Souls game. Like you know that like you're not going to win if you just take them all on. However, in Phantom Blade, you're almost encouraged to fight them all simultaneously, and that's because the combat system is designed in a way where you can deflect and dodge attacks that are coming behind you, and you can also continue your combos onto multiple enemies simultaneously. So if you defeat an enemy mid-combo, you will seamlessly transition the rest of that combo onto a nearby enemy, oftentimes like flipping over to them and continuing it, which feels really good and fun. So as you get better and better at this game, you're not going to be as intimidated by a pack of 4 enemies as you would when you first start playing. In fact, you're going to see it as, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. And it makes you feel like an absolute badass when you're doing it. Because if you're like watching a martial arts movie or some kung fu movie, they don't shy away from, you know, the main character or protagonist fighting against multiple enemies. And those are the best scenes usually. When they're taking on a group of enemies and they're taking them all out. Any action movie, really, those are the best scenes. It's not one-on-one that you're looking forward to. So you feel really good when you're doing that. And as you get better at the game, you're going to lean into that more. And I think that kind of sets this game apart from maybe some other games that are similar to it in genre. So far, I think Phantom Blade Zero is just one of those games that doesn't come around very often. It raises the bar for what combat should be like in an action role-playing game or an action game or a Souls-like, however you want to qualify this game. It really raises the bar. It's pushing the limits of what players are capable of doing in combat. It feels good, it looks good, and hopefully what that means is that in the future we'll see more action RPGs, more Souls-like games that have even better combat as they try and raise the bar as well. Phantom Blade Zero is a game that we're going to continue to keep an eye on over here at Fextralife. It's one that I will see again probably at Tokyo Game Show this year in just a few weeks. I will be going to that in Japan. And I've also been invited to Beijing to see S Game Studio, check out the game a little bit more, and like see behind the scenes about the development, how they've actually like mocapped Kung Fu Masters for this game. So that's something I'm looking forward to. I don't know exactly when that may be happening. I think it's going to be later this year if it does happen. But expect to see something about that on our channel later this year if you're interested in Phantom Blade Zero. So that kind of wraps up our video on Phantom Blade Zero. This is a game that just gets better and better every time I play it somehow, which is incredible to say out loud because it's already so damn good. I don't know how they keep making it better. But I want to know what you guys think of this game. If you've seen our previous coverage of it, have you been following this game? Is this one you've never heard of before? What do you make of it so far? Let me know in the comments below.